Thank you so much for joining me today for the Confident Sober Women podcast. I am so excited that you're here, and what an exciting opportunity for us to kind of really dive into looking ahead at the next year to come. Obviously, this time of year, everyone's talking about, New Year's, and I don't really believe in resolutions personally. I know some people
Yeah.
like that word for a variety of reasons, but I do think it's a very reflective opportunity if we choose to really look at kind of where we've been this year, what went well, what didn't go well, and then really where we are going, looking at that
Yeah.
future self version of ourselves so that we can kind of understand what we want. Because if we don't have a vision of that future self, then how would we even know what the roadmap is to get there? And I know we're going to get into all of it, but first, I'd like to take the opportunity for you to share some of your story with us and a little bit of what's going on in your recovery space, and then we're going to talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelby, for having me. So I'm Jeannette Hounjet. I am a woman in recovery for many years now because my recovery journey it didn't go very smoothly at the beginning. There was an awareness that things weren't going that great, but it took a few twists and turns. One of the things that I started with was recovery from anger, from lack of self-love, from, lack of self-worth. That was really the first place where I started. And of course, later on, I was sober curious. But there came a point where I decided that, full sobriety was really the way to go for me. So that's where I am now. And I've started a business called Now She's Living to help women in recovery love themselves, and yeah, so I'm very excited to be here and talking with you today.
Wonderful. So I'm curious if you can say just a tiny bit more. I know this isn't a mini episode, so we are trying to keep things tight, but um what did you like use, or how did you get involved in recovery? Like, some people would go to 12-step programs, some people read books. Like, how did you discover a program, or what did you do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because I tried so many things. I can tell you that my first AA meeting, I went to AA for the first time when I was 21, right? I'm 45 now. And at the time, I grew up in Panama. So at the time, that was one of the only options that I knew of and that was available out there. However, it didn't really resonate with me. There were a few things that um, they weren't aligned with my beliefs and values. And so it was hard for me to stick with it. I would come, I would go, I would always look at it and say, oh, well, that's too much. I'm not quite there. I was very lucky when I came to Canada years later to find different avenues of recovery and to also learn that it's okay to do it a different way, that there is no just one road to recovery. And that really opened the doors. As you know, with She Recovers, they really talk about the patchwork of recovery and how that is an individualized path. That gave me so much freedom. And honestly, I was very relieved to know that my recovery is my own and that I can choose a way that feels nurturing and good to me, to do it. Because before, I felt that recovery was very much steeped in shame and, like you're doing it wrong sort of thing. So, yeah, that was kind of my journey.
Interesting. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I'd like to highlight that as well. I mean, however we get here is really a personal situation, and it's fine, right? It's good, right? We're just thankful
Yeah.
that we are on the road to recovery, that we have chosen to live a life without substances. And even if you don't view yourself as an addict, or if you didn't even have a problem with substances, like, if you don't use them, your life will be better anyway, because they are
Yes.
addictive to all people, no matter who you are. And so even the World Health Organization says no amount of alcohol is safe to use. So what we know now from brain research and science is it tells us that they're just not good to use. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's good. And I always say too, we need to take a layered approach to things. Like,
Mhm.
worked for us, in the beginning. Like, I got sober in AA too, probably around the same time. as you, and there wasn't anything else really around available at that time anyway that I knew of. And so that's what worked for me. I did it. It really was great. I love the program. I still promote it, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I layered on a lot of other things like really good therapy and trauma work and complementary medicine and like other things like She Recovers and just a lot of other tools, Quitlet. And so we have to become willing to look at what else we need, because like you
Yeah.
say, even too, like maybe you are a woman who in the past have always made New Year's resolutions and you're like, this is what my mom did, this is what everybody does, I do it. And so I'm like thinking about it in categories or however you do it. Maybe you've always done it that way. And then now maybe you're older or like somebody else put a little bug in your ear and you're starting to think like, maybe this whole resolution thing isn't the right approach for me, and so I'm
Right.
going to try to look at it a different way. And um, I think we're going to chat about that. So I'm kind of curious about
Yeah.
that. Great segue into like, how do you view that?
So one of my things is, I mean, I love what you said about sometimes we just have these inherited things that we do, right? And it could be from your family, but it could also be from the media, or it could be from, your friends, your school. We have these layers of conditioning that we're not even aware of a lot of times. So one of the things that I think is super important for um, creating a vision for yourself for the year, creating a vision board, or, I'm like you, I'm not really into the resolution thing, but creating that is getting really curious with yourself. Like, where did these things come from? Is it really what I want? Or, was some of it what they told me to want? There's nothing wrong with receiving advice from people you love and, traditions and things like that. But if you're going to create a vision, let's make sure it's yours, right?
Absolutely. I love that you said that so much because one of the things that I focus on in my programs and anytime I work with clients in general is values. And to me, that's what you just said and that's a really important part of creating our own vision for even our whole life or each year or each month or our family is really a values question. And sometimes I think most people don't really know a lot about that. We don't learn it in school. No one's sitting around talking about what are your personal core values when you're like coming
Yeah.
through high school, although I think they should.
Hmm.
But we tend to adopt what we were raised with. Whoever our caregivers were, we take on what they were. So like if they were like Christian people, we are like, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm a Christian. Or I value education, like everybody's very highly educated and so that's my important to me, so I'm going to go do that, or we value adventure or fun or whatever it is. You see these things and then we go through adolescence, right? That 18 or 13 to 22-year-old period of time, sometimes a lot longer, where our literal developmental task is to separate from our parents and discover who we are separate from our parents. And
Yeah.
so
If we're
that's
lucky.
where this stuff starts to creep in, and then all of a sudden you see people being like, it looks like rebellion, right? Or bucking the system or something. But really, what's happening is they're developmentally trying to separate. Now, a lot of times they're the same. Might be like, actually, that is who I am.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they're not. And sometimes people live their whole lives, particularly women in addiction, because when you start drinking and using, you get your emotional growth stunted at the age you started, they say. So if you started drinking and using at 14 or 15 years old and your brain and emotionality stops developing, now you've attached all of those values that you've picked up since then and you've run with it in your life because you didn't have the opportunity to kind of develop them. And
Yeah.
then you might get to like 40 and think like, I actually really hate everything to do with education. I don't really want to be, I done all this work and I don't want to be this, or I really don't believe in this thing. So I feel like we get stunted in that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a unique experience. And so now we're in recovery, we're looking at these things. It should always be from a values perspective.
Yeah, and it's also a really beautiful opportunity to ask yourself those questions and rediscover who you are, because I feel that what happens a lot of the time is we remove the substance, right? And then we're not sure. What are my values? What do I really like? We start asking those questions, and that might bring up a little bit of fear of change, but it's so important because it's going to be key in really um, creating a life that feels good to you. There's no point in trying to manifest or make happen somebody else's dream, somebody else's desire, because you're not going to feel good. And the whole point of part of our recovery is really reclaiming our power and feeling good.
So at the most basic of levels, because we only have such a short time, how do you do that? Like, how do you, or if you were working with somebody new, like a very brand new baby person, new to any kind of vision board or manifestation or even values, like what are some of the steps that you walk them through?
Okay, so for the basic creation of the board, let's say you're going to sit down, you're going to create your board today. We're going to start with curiosity. We already talked a little bit about that, right? And then the whole the vision board is representing your desires. So you could, let's say, find magazines, find pictures, find images. Once you got curious and you decide on 5 things that you want to bring into your life this year. So find a visual representation of that so that you can look at it and keep it in the front of your mind every day. Um, I'm going to run through the steps and then we can go back a little bit. You have to be open to receiving these things. That's a big one of it because sometimes we want something, but fear creeps in or we don't think we're worth it. Um, Emotions might come up around these things. So notice how you feel. And the biggest thing is to be open to receiving that thing that you've asked for in your vision board. We'll talk about strategies in a little bit, but the final thing is be very grateful. Act as it's already part of something you have. I like to say that, when you order something from Amazon, you're already excited. It's coming. Your package, you're waiting for it. You're looking out the window. When is it going to get here? Use that. Be excited for it already coming to you. Sometimes we think we have to see it first, but it's not really the way vibration works. It's not really the way law of attraction and assumption works. It's already having that gratitude and the feeling of excitement for it. So you have these components. The visual is going to help you remember what your desire is and sometimes even really get in tune with, hey, is this really something I want? So you're going to create that. Then you're going to really be open to receiving that desire that you've asked for, because a lot of the times we notice there is a little bit of friction, there's a little bit of resistance, right? And the last one is to be so grateful that it's already in your space and you act from that place.
Okay, wonderful. I love this overview so much. So basically, you've given us like kind of a clear picture of
Yeah.
what a vision board is.
Yeah.
And by the way, and I'm sure you can speak to this, can look any way. It could be digital, it could
Yes.
be a poster board, it could be in a journal where it's just, like pictures that you cut out and paste or draw in like a small book. There's really no rules here. It's like
No
whatever is going
rules.
to work for you, except for the fact that I do think it should be someplace where you are going to visually see it regularly, daily,
Yes.
where you're going to see it. So that's the general framework and kind of the why of it. Like you shared a little bit of the why, like to help us get real clear, to help us remember, to remind us,
Mhm.
and then also to start to begin to like notice the emotions that we've attached to some of this stuff and how we can feel it in our bodies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the overview of what this
Yeah.
looks like when we're creating a vision board or a future for our next upcoming year. I love
Yeah.
that so
And one thing I wanted to suggest as well is, it, yes, you want to see it. So it could be your screensaver, it could be on your phone, but I would highly suggest to keep it to yourself
much.
for a while, right? Because it can create resistance. You don't want to be sharing, oh, look at that, I want this and I want that and I want that, and then include other people's opinions, beliefs, thoughts about it into your energy.
You're so right about that. And, a lot of times when we are doing things like this, we get really excited, right? Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
might be a little scary, but it's like that kind of excitement fear, right? So we're like, oh, I really want to run a marathon this year. Like that's on my heart. I want that, and you're like, oh, this is like exciting, but it's also super scary. And so, yes, there's a lot of, um, bubbling up things around it. But yet, as soon as we start to share anything with the world, any thought, feeling, creative work, anything, even with our partners or our moms or our children or people that are our best friend, everyone is does have opinions, and we're all always judging. It doesn't mean that we're bad. It just means that that's
Yeah.
what's happening. And some people are better at this than others, right? Some people have no filter. Some people have manners, right? And so somebody might say to you, like you're not gonna be able to run a marathon. Like you don't even jog. How are
Yeah.
you
Or
gonna
that's too hard. What are you
right?
thinking?
Right. And so immediately, even if you are set on it, you're gonna have a conscious response to that at the neurological level, right? Like it's gonna get inside of you at some level, which is then energetically gonna have to be worked through by you and take up more energy than you need to like get rid of it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say I agree, unless you're really sure that
Hmm.
you know this person really well and that they are going to support certain parts of that vision board for you, I would be cautious as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like it's not like you're trying to be secretive.
Yeah, it's not like you're hiding it. You're just making sure that you're very rooted in it, that your full focus is on this and not like you said on trying to convince anybody else or, you don't need anybody else's approval for your dreams. They are your dreams and you can say whatever you want, but you have to be prepared that there might be resistance for other people. So, it's absolutely up to the individual, but I truly believe that keeping it to yourself is a good way to not encounter that fear and resistance that other people might have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like what you just said is other people's fear and resistance. It's really is their stuff that's coming.
Yes.
A lot of it is, and then some of it's their own internal judgment of themselves. Like, well, gosh, I should be doing that, or like I've always wanted to do that too, but I've never made it happen. And so like there's this other dialogue happening for the other person
Yeah.
that's probably has nothing to do with you, but because you've now brought it to the forefront, it's going to look like an attack and not feel so great. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like the protection around that. And you can drip things out, real kind of slow, or you're like, oh, I was thinking about trying to really focus on my fitness this year, or like I've decided I really want to focus on health, like that's going to be a big goal for me. And so there's a lot of ways you can kind of drip out the concepts that look like what you're trying to do, but without saying all of it, just to protect it a little
Yeah.
bit
Here's
more.
my vision board.
Yeah. Could you say a little bit more and maybe even offer some strategies? I don't know this. I know that this is a very big concept around what it means to be open to the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the three steps that I like to work with around, being open to receive is there's belief is the first thing that's going to happen. There's a belief that we have um, created. I'm not sure if created is a word, but that we have established through many different avenues since kids, since we're growing up, right? That through things that we hear, conditioning, school, our parents, our caretakers. That's the first. There's beliefs. Then the beliefs about something are going to generate thoughts, and those thoughts are going to manifest into feelings about it. And for example, if you put a mansion in your vision board, I want this beautiful big house, but you have a core belief that, um, oh, well, that's just for other people, that's not something that's possible for me. That's or let's say you have a resistance, a belief that wealth is not good, that wealthy people are bad. You have to notice those beliefs because they are going to prevent you from receiving what you want. And so reframing those beliefs, one of the things you can do is affirmations around the beliefs, right? It's amazing. Even the vision board can help you notice what you believe about things that, maybe you didn't realize before. So doing affirmations is a great way to see where you have resistance and start saying to yourself, if you feel resistance to, that big dream goal, whatever it may be, let's put the example of the marathon as well. Well, who am I to run that? I can't do that. I'm never start affirming to yourself, I am a strong, capable woman. Yes, I can run a marathon. Okay, so that's as far as talking about beliefs. Then comes the thought, and thoughts are, so the core belief is what's going to influence your thought. The thought is going to be, I can't. That's what really the thought is going to be. And, or who am I? And so we can easily begin to reframe thoughts. So the willingness is a first thing. You notice the thought, which we're not used to doing as women in recovery because we're used to numbing. We're used to, shoving things down. But once we've removed the substances, we have this space now to start noticing our thoughts, all of the things that are running through your mind all the time, and going, is this thought supporting me? Is this helping me create the life that I want? Or is it holding me back still? So notice your thoughts and see where you can start reframing them to supportive thoughts. Let your thoughts be your cheerleader, not, this downer voice that is keeping you stuck. So then noticing the thoughts, and thoughts are going to create feelings. They're going to come anyways, but we can, as we notice the thoughts, as we reframe them, our goal is to start to feel better and better, to start to feel good, because that vibration of feeling good is what allows things to come to you. When you're constricted, when you are saying, I can't, I grew up thinking I can't, and now I'm telling myself I can't, and now I feel terrible because I believe that, it's very hard to accept and receive good in your life. So with the feeling, you can visualize, take time to visualize yourself feeling different. Who would you be if you believed and thought that you could have that? And you would feel different. Who would you be if you visualized yourself crossing that finish line in that marathon, right? Like happy, excited. And this is all a process that takes time, but you can start small. Say, I'm going to do this 1 minute in the morning, 1 minute before bed. As long as you maintain that momentum to keep at it, keep going. Don't start by saying, I'm gonna meditate 30 minutes a day and visualize this, because we're busy, right? We have so many things going on. But so that would be my advice around that.
That's so helpful. I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of us can really understand those things and see how we can really put them into place pretty quickly. I mean, they're not like super high level things. It doesn't
Mhm.
feel very overwhelming. And I want to say too that the consistency of any of these things is what matters the most. And we do need to do things in very small, manageable chunks that
Yes.
are done consistently over time every single day.
Yeah.
So, whether if you, so say you decide, like, I really want to create this vision board and I'm going to work on kind of manifesting these things and becoming open. And so, pick like the time of day you want that to happen. I prefer doing things in the morning with all of like
Mhm.
my other morning meditation and routines. Like, if I'm going to enter something new, maybe midday or nighttime is better for you, but pick the time when you will do it every single day. Like, what we
Yeah.
want to do is what we will do.
Yeah.
So every morning you sit and you have your morning routine with your coffee, your book, or whatever you like to do, and your maybe you already do like a little bit of a meditation. If not, you just, yeah, start with like 2 minutes. I would really recommend that. Or like 3 minutes. I would really just start with like 2 or 3 minutes if you're new. You can use one of those like apps. You can just set a timer on your phone and sit quietly, kind of with like an open heart. There's
Yeah.
a lot of ways to kind of do that and just kind of allow, like, call in the open-mindedness and willingness around these particular goals and dreams for you, for
And
sure.
one more thing I wanted to say, we have the tool of just for today,
Yeah.
one day at a time. So one of the things that I like to do, yeah, that's why with New Year's resolutions, okay, to stop one day at a time. Just for today, I'm going to do this. Just for today, I'm going to notice my thoughts. I'm going to see where I'm, putting myself down. Just for today, to me, is very helpful. And I find is something that you can use that feels manageable.
Mhm. I think that is so true. And especially in times of overwhelm, when we're overly busy, when we have a lot going on, whether it's with our own children or our work or whatever we have, everyone's got a lot of stuff. And there are times for us that are extremely busy, like right now, holiday time or other times. And when those times come, sometimes the overwhelm can be just so kind of heavy and doesn't allow us to remember to stay in the moment, right? And so then that
Yeah.
one day at a time, like this moment right now, like
Yeah.
gets us back, you know? But then as we start to open up and we get familiar with this concept, we put the things on the board, we have our goals and dreams, we have our statements that we're using to kind of change the affirmations to change our thinking patterns, which is a slow process, but it does happen if we do these things
Yeah.
consistently over time. And then I love what you said at the end too, and this is what I always talk about when we talk about future self work is really designing that future self in every single aspect that you can. So, what is she wearing? Where is she having coffee? Like, what kind of car are you driving? Who are your friends? Like, if you're running that marathon, like, what outfit are you wearing? What kind of shoes? Where is it going to be located? Like, every little detail
Yeah.
of
You started getting really familiar with her, right?
yes, so like you know her, right?
Yes.
So that way, every time you're faced with a decision, particularly when it's not an easy one, and you're like, what would that future? You can call her a name, you know, six figure Shelby or whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
Like you can call her a name, and then you can say, what would that version of me do in this situation? Like, what would she do?
Exactly. And you start acting from the end, right? Like
Yeah.
you act how that person that has these things, has that life, what would she do?
Yeah, we want to start with the end in mind and then work our
Yes.
way back. So like it's just so much easier and much more manageable because like the concept of like running a marathon or really doing anything big feels like ridiculous. Like there's just no way I can do that. But when you backtrack from how when you want to do that all the way up until 6 months out, 3 months out, all the way up to today, and you're like, okay, well, what could I do today,
Yes.
tomorrow, that's gonna get me to that goal?
Yeah.
Well, I can go out and buy a new pair of shoes and a cute outfit, and then I can go for a 1 mile walk,
Yeah.
and then tomorrow I can do the same thing, or I can start to jog and walk, and then we just do those little tiny things in accordance to the plan to get us to the end. So backing into it is my
Absolutely.
favorite thing.
I love it.
So thank you so much, Jeanette. I know this was fast. We've literally
Thank
merely
you.
scratched the tip of the iceberg on this topic. So we definitely would love to have you come back next
Thank you
year
so
and do a full episode around like vision boards and future self work because I don't think this is talked about enough, specifically when it comes
much.
to incorporating our values and really help us each get closer to this concept and what it really means to us personally. So I'd love that. So where do you like people
Yeah.
to get in touch with you if they want to?
So great. My website is nowshe'sliving.com. You can find me with that name on Instagram as well or Pinterest. And I wanted to share with everybody that one of the free downloads that I have on my website right now is a vision planner for 2025. So please feel free to go and download that to use as well.
Wonderful. Everyone, just make sure you go do that as you're making these plans to do your vision for next year. Grab her free download and just thank you so much, Jeanette, for your time. And I wish you just
Thank
a
you,
super happy
Shelby.
holiday season. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year.
You as well. Thank you.